Okay, so welcome back, and so we want to talk about using the fundamental trig identities to solve for angles and solve for other trigonometric functions. So again, some of this is just straightforward from what we did before. So again, these are the basic fundamental trig identities. Okay, it's the fact that tangent is sine over cosine. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine, so 1 over sine. Secant is the reciprocal of 1 over cosine, and cotangent is the reciprocal of tangent, which is then cosine over sine. Okay, so we can use these to solve problems like these that I have. Now, again, there's many different ways you could do this. Okay, so if I look at sine and cosine, I see that cosine of 45 degrees and sine and cosine of 45 degrees are both the same. Okay, notice that they're both the same, but notice that they have the same sign, which tells me that this angle is located in the first quadrant. Okay, now the fact that they want tangent, I can just use the fact that tangent is just the reciprocal, or not the reciprocal, but the ratio of sine and cosine, right? And we've done this before, right? All you do is just take the ratio of the two, right? So just take square root of 2 over 2 divided by square root of 2 over 2, and you get 1. Okay, so the tangent of 45-degree angle, and again, if you think about the 45-degree angle, you should know that based on a 45-45-90 triangle, then the opposite and adjacent sides are always the same. So again, we should get 1, right? In fact, what are the two sides? It's the square root of 2 and the square root of 2. They're the same, okay? So, or excuse me, I mean 1 and 1, right? So again, 1 divided by 1 is 1. So this makes sense, right? But we're able to do it based on this information, okay? It's just that this proves what we already know. Now, what about this one? Sine of negative 5 pi over 6. Okay, now remember, we did this one before. Now, negative 5 pi over 6 is in the third quadrant, right? So we would expect sine to be positive, or excuse me, sine is sine of negative 5 pi over 6. Yes. Should be negative. Let me see, hold on a second. Let me see here. No, it's positive. Okay, so it's positive. Okay, so no, I just want to make sure I wrote it out. So sine of negative 5 pi over 6 is 1/2. Cosine of negative 5 pi over 6 is negative 3 square root of 3 over 2. Okay, now remember, sine is opposite over hypotenuse, and cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So what about secant? Well, what is secant? Secant is what? The reciprocal of cosine. So all we have to do is take this one, and it's going to be 1 over negative square root of 3 over 2, which then if we take the reciprocal of that, that's going to give us negative 2 over the square root of 3, which then again, rationalizing the denominator, we get negative 2 root 3 over 3. Okay, and that's our answer. Now, if I look at okay, so think about this here. So here they're saying sine is 1/2. And cosine is negative. So sine is positive in what quadrants? Sine is positive in the first and second quadrant. Cosine is negative in which quadrants? Cosine's negative in the second and what? Third quadrants. So that means that this is telling us that we are in the second quadrant. So let me make sure I didn't write this down wrong. I think that should be positive. Oh, you know what? I did. See? See, I knew something was wrong because, again, if this is negative, then we should be in the third quadrant. But I double-checked this, and I double-checked these to make sure that this was correct. But if you look at these are telling me that I'm in the second quadrant. So I double-checked the angle, and sure enough, I made a mistake here because this should be positive. And now it makes sense. Okay? So again, always ask yourself, does it make sense? Because here I caught a mistake that I made. Okay? I put a negative sign here, but again, things have to make sense, right? So base everything on what you already know for prior knowledge, right? So now this is correct. Okay, now this makes sense. Okay, and even this makes sense now because if I'm in the second quadrant, then that makes sense that this would also be negative. Okay, and so that's it. Have a great day.